Okay, let's start with a question that sounds like a trivia fact but isn't. Which first world nation has the worst record of killing off its own wildlife? Australia. Yep, the land down under isn't just home to kangaroos and didgeridoos, it's ground zero for extinction. But here's the twist. One tiny, stripy-faced marsupial might be teaching us how to fix this mess. Let's unpack this. So, imagine a creature that looks like a chipmunk's wild cousin, eats termites for breakfast, and was this close to vanishing forever. The Numbat. 10 years ago, there were barely 1,000 left. Now, they're bouncing back. Enough to get downgraded from endangered to near threatened. Which sounds like a win until you realize this is basically the environmental equivalent of a participation trophy. Because while the Numbat's story is hopeful, it's also a distraction. A shiny object to make us forget the 100+ species Australia has already lost. And the 800+ still at risk. Let's zoom out. Australia's extinction crisis isn't some natural disaster, it's a policy disaster. Think about this. This is a country that spends $26 on destructive industries for every $1 on conservation. That's not a typo. They're propping up mining, logging, and agriculture while their unique ecosystems burn, drown, or get eaten by feral cats. And yes, feral cats are literal apex predators here. They've wiped out entire rodent species. But hey, at least they're cute, right? What fascinates me, and honestly, terrifies me, is how Australia's tragedy mirrors global patterns. We're all terrible at valuing nature until it's gone. Take the Gilbert's potoroo, the world's rarest marsupial. There's maybe 100 left, clinging to life on a tiny island. But no one cares because it's not a koala. We've turned conservation into a popularity contest. Cute animals get crowdfunding campaigns, less glamorous species vanish unnoticed. And that's a problem because ecosystems aren't theme parks. Every extinction ripples outward. Lose the potoroo? You lose a seed disperser. Then the plants die. Then the bugs die. Then, well, you get the idea. Now, let's talk about the Numbat's comeback. It's real, but fragile. They've gone from 50 to 3,000 in Dryandra woodland, a tenfold increase. But here's the catch. Those 3,000 Numbats are all stuck in a postage stamp of protected land surrounded by farmland. Like a nature island in a sea of wheat. And if the government decides to roll back protections for economic growth? Poof! Gone again. This isn't conservation, it's a high-stakes game of whack-a-mole. And speaking of government, Australia's new environment laws sound great until you realize they're all structure, no substance. They're like buying a gym membership and never leaving the parking lot. The political will just isn't there unless voters start screaming louder about koalas than about gas prices. One thing I keep circling back to, Australia's identity crisis. This is a country that markets itself as a land of wild beauty. Think Tourism Australia's Don't Go Small campaigns, but domestically, nature protection is treated like a hobby, not a priority. First Nations communities see this differently, though. For them, extinction isn't just ecological loss, it's cultural erasure. When a species disappears, so does a piece of Dreamtime stories, art, and connection to country. That perspective? It's barely part of the national conversation. Which makes me wonder, what if conservation efforts centered Indigenous stewardship models instead of treating them as an afterthought? Here's the brutal truth. We already know how to fix this. Feral predator control works. Habitat restoration works. Breeding programs work. But doing them at scale requires money, political courage, and a societal shift. And that's the hardest part. Australia's extinction crisis isn't a mystery to solve, it's a choice they're making. Every mine approved over a rainforest, every dollar spent subsidizing fossil fuels instead of rewilding, every compromise that sacrifices endangered species, it's a series of decisions. Not accidents. So, where does that leave us? With a question, can hope and accountability coexist? The Numbat's recovery proves we're capable of saving species. But pretending this one win fixes the system is dangerously misleading. The real story here isn't about a cute little marsupial. It's about humanity's ability or inability to value life before it's gone. What do you think? Is hope enough when the deck is stacked this badly? Let me know in the comments. And if you're wondering how to help, start by Googling Australian conservation nonprofits. Then pick one and donate. Because at this point, extinction is only inevitable if we let it be.